Hello ladies and gentlemen, and movie lovers of all kind, and welcome back to the channel. As always, I am your host, Brett Murphy, and for today's video, I have a brand new Cinema Showdown versus video for you all, and it is going to be John Wick versus James Bond. So for around a decade now, one question has plagued the minds of moviegoers everywhere, and that question simply is, John Wick or James Bond? Well folks, today I have made it my own personal mission to try my absolute best to answer that for you all. I should specify too before we get into this showdown that I am specifically and only talking about Daniel Craig's James Bond. There would just be far too much material and far too many variations across all of the movies through the various decades of Bond. So for the purposes of simplicity and for recency, it is John Wick versus Daniel Craig's James Bond. Over the next little while, I'm going to be comparing and contrasting these two action movie icons across 9 rounds to determine just one winner. So, who comes out on top? Well folks, we're about to find out. Before I hop into the actual versus video itself, I just wanted to let you all know that I have an entire playlist dedicated to all of my Cinema Showdown versus videos. That playlist is already jam-packed with showdowns for you to enjoy, so if versus videos are your thing, then be sure to check that out and I guarantee you'll find something you like. And so without further ado, let's hop right into things. Round 1. Strength. This first round is a little tricky because how do you truly measure strength through a movie screen? No doubt that in the early days especially, Craig was in much better shape as Bond than Reeves has been as Wick. Of course, meaning no disrespect to Reeves, I just mean in the sense of Craig beefed up a lot and had plenty of shirtless scenes to show it off. So really, I'm basing this round off of their hand-to-hand combat encounters and how easily they can dispatch of foes the same size as them or bigger. And depending on the condition they are into when they do it, so it's a mix of a few things. With that in mind, no doubt that Bond has immense physical strength, but Wick has faced a much larger variety of foes, big and bigger. I mean, think about the very large man at the tail end of 2, think about the opening fight with the former basketball star at the beginning of 3, or think about the showdown with Scott Adkins' Killa in Chapter 4. Taking all of this into consideration, yes, Craig was absolutely a beefcake when he first started out as Bond, but when it comes to strength, at least what has been on display throughout their movies, I'm gonna have to give this round to John Wick. Round 2. Durability. I mean, come on, this one is an absolute no-brainer, the easiest round of the showdown. No disrespect to Bond, cause the man has clearly been through some shit, but you can watch any individual John Wick movie and he endures more than all 5 of Craig's movies combined and continues pushing forward like an absolute machine. I really do think they put this best in John Wick's first film. He is a man of focus, commitment, and sheer effing will. And this one, without a doubt, is also going to go to John Wick. Round 3. Speed. This round is a little trickier once again because what really defines speed? Like, is it just running? Is it the speed of their punches and kicks? Or is it their reaction time? Or is it just kind of a bit of everything? When it comes to speed in combat, it's pretty close. Reaction speed, I'd say the same, but the on-foot speed is the differentiator here. Wick isn't much for speed. He's more about precision and focus. He cleverly navigates his way through his environment and dispatches his foes with great prejudice. But Bond has way more chase scenes throughout his 5 movies. On foot, in cars, on bikes, mixed in a little bit of parkour here and there, and a few other little variations of situations here too, and it becomes very clear very quickly that Bond is going to take this round. Round 4. Agility. Agility is a bit of an interesting one to sort of navigate too, because both of these men are no doubt agile in their own little ways. John Wick has much more variety in his combat with plenty of takedowns, rolls, and trips, but he is a bit stiff in his movements and can be taken down quite easily himself. Bond is by no means a gymnast or the most flexible and light-footed either, but he does have some experience in parkour, it seems. Look no further than the opening parkour scene of Casino Royale alone, which I believe sets Bond apart, but even the opening to Skyfall does the trick too, 2, showcasing Bond's occasional agility. Therefore, I'm also going to have to hand this round to James Bond. Round 5, Battle IQ. Both of these men are without a doubt hands down the best at what they do in their respective universes. I mean, that's exactly why they're both our main characters. Both approach every situation with a sharp mind and a cunning plan of engagement. I think everyone's going to have a different opinion on this one and a different approach to how to answer it. Both play outside the rules and do whatever it takes, but I think between Wick's massive body count and huge success rate, the answer does make itself a little bit clearer. Whether it's the way he uses his environment to his advantage, the way he moves his body, the way his attack pattern changes based on the size and number of his enemies, and the multitude of fight styles he possesses, on top of his proficiency with every weapon and the ability to turn pretty much anything into a lethal weapon. So John Wick's battle IQ is going to take this round for him. Round 6, Experience. There's no clearly defined period of time that either of these men have been in the game for. When we meet both of them, they are much later in their lives. John Wick is actually retired and has been retired for really an unknown period of time. And when we first meet him in Casino Royale, Bond is already clearly established as this generation's 007. Though we as the audience know very well who James Bond is, we don't get much in the way of his backstory, and he often has much to prove throughout his most recent run. And he often has much to prove throughout this most recent run of movies. John Wick's legacy, on the other hand, is already well established when we finally get to meet him, where he's already known as the Baba Yaga, aka the Boogeyman. But not the Boogeyman in the general sense. He's the one you send to kill the Boogeyman. He killed 3 men with a pencil, and he was given an impossible task in order to escape his life as a hitman, and he completes it. Though we don't truly know how these two line up in terms of years on the job, John Wick's experience and what he has done truly speaks for itself through the world around him. So this round goes to John Wick. Round 7. Combat and Skills. This one isn't necessarily the easiest to answer either, as per pretty much all the rest of the rounds up to this point. We don't know the true extent to which either of these men has trained. Their movie franchises are very, very different in how they approach their action, and they both use a variety of different methods in their approaches. But in my opinion, Wick is no doubt the more lethal. John Wick possesses a wide variety in terms of skills and delivers us a massive body count, with estimates being roughly around 439 kills, according to Screen Rant at least. John Wick can simply just do things that Bond can't. I think maybe Bond approaches his situations maybe a little more tactically, and there's a bit more variety in his action sequences as they involve a lot more chasing, mostly, but how would Bond fare with nunchucks? Or in a motorcycle chase where you have to fight with swords while driving, or on horseback? Bond has got some skills, no doubt. But Wick is just simply more adaptable, being able to adjust to virtually any situation, using a much larger variety of weapons and hand-to-hand combat techniques. Not to mention there is no way, no how that Bond would ever possibly survive the legions of goons that come after John Wick. And so for me, this answer became pretty obvious the more I spoke on it. John Wick takes this round. Round 8. Stamina. Well, this is pretty refreshing. This one's actually a bit of an easy round. Just watch any individual John Wick movie for your answer. The man simply doesn't quit. The definition of endure, improvise, adapt, and overcome. He just keeps pushing forward no matter what and survives ridiculous amounts of shit and immeasurable levels of punishment. He'll hobble around with bullet wounds, stab wounds, and fall damage, and still manage to get the job done in dispatch of countless foes. The stamina of this man is incomparable, unmatchable, unbelievable. I mean, it definitely is a little unbelievable, but it makes for some damn entertaining movies. There's just no quit in this guy in terms of his stamina and in terms of this showdown, because this round also goes to John Wick. Final round. Weaponry and gadgets. Now look, you would think that Bond would be the obvious pick here, but that's only if we're talking about Bond throughout all time and not just Craig's Bond. Going back through his movies, you quickly realize how little he uses any fancy gadgets and how he's more of just a plain Jane spy. He gets a little bit when Q gets introduced, and he does get his fancy car with machine guns, but compared to the golden days, he took a hit in the gadget department with this latest modern iteration of the character. And in my own humble opinion, the stuff found in the John Wick movies, although completely impossible, definitely gets a little overlooked at times. Bulletproof suits, full top to bottom bulletproof body armor, countless types of weaponry like guns, blades, and blunt weapons, and various ammo types too. Plus, I mean, just think about that dragon's breath scene in John Wick 4, it's just freaking unbelievable. Yes, it may not be the flashiest stuff like you might see in the old school Bond movies, and it's not as extravagant like the kind of stuff you would see in video games or that someone like Batman would have in his arsenal. But there are so many weapons throughout these 4 movies, and the bulletproof suits alone always keep the fight sequences refreshing and interesting. So once again, if we were encompassing all of Bond, yeah, he definitely has some cool, interesting, funky gadgets throughout his various iterations across decades upon decades, but Craig's Bond was simply just too modernized in some ways, and thus lacking any sort of variety in his gadgets or his weaponry. So this 9th and final round, and the crown is going to go to John Wick. So that is all for today's video, folks. Be sure to let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree with my winner. While you're at it, be sure to let me know who you would have picked to win each round and who your overall winner would have been. If you're a movie lover whatsoever, then my channel is the place to be for you. Be it versus videos like this one, tier videos, ranking videos, top 10s, I have it all and so much more with well over 700 videos currently on the channel for you to enjoy. So if you enjoyed this particular video, then be sure to hit that thumbs up button. And if any of that sounds like it's right for you and you want to see more from me, then smash that subscribe button right now. While you're at it, don't forget to ring that little bell icon, that way you can be notified about all of my latest uploads. And as always, stay safe, thank you so much for watching, and that's a wrap. Hey you, yeah you, if you made it this far, just know I appreciate you, and while you're here, consider hitting that subscribe button.